of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, that we penetrate the cabinets.
I also want to reiterate how deeply sorry Canada is for the situation this put President Zelensky and the Ukrainian delegation in. It is extremely troubling to think that this egregious error is being politicized by Russia and its supporters to provide false propaganda about what Ukraine is fighting for.
Why does this government treat Alberta like a fart in the room that nobody wants to talk about or acknowledge?
I heard her say a word that I know is distinctly unparliamentary, and I think she may want to withdraw it. The word was F-A-R-T.
I mean, we love your Mr. Trudeau. I mean, his family's always been such big fans about that.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back, Yeti. It is Monday, November 18th, 2024. Welcome to episode 16 of the Maple Files. How's everybody doing? How's everybody coping?
We're coping pretty good over here, so we're getting things built slowly, and I mean, not really slowly. It's going quite as good as I could really hope. We have to do some changes, like the building inspector showed up, so I gotta change out my footings on my building. So that's gonna be fun. We're gonna hire someone for that one, though. Thankfully, we've got some really great people here, so, and I'm almost to the point I can start putting roof rafters up.
Nice. Yeah, glad to have you back, man. It's looking good in there too. You've got like a, it's like an army. Oh, there we go.
A little ambiance.
Nice. Do you still got bugs out there?
No, not really. We had a pet wasp for a while, but I think he gave up on life as well.
Sorry to hear that. Well, we're glad you're back and you're continuing your Minecraft IRL. That is good stuff. Hope everybody's having a fantastic Monday. Well, as fantastic a Monday as it can get under capitalism, I suppose. We got a lot to cover tonight. There's been some developments with both Trudeau and his opposition, Pierre. Obviously, as many of you may know, there is a strike, so we're going to break that down and kind of provide more information on it. But yeah, just to introduce, I hate to toot my own horn. I'm kidding. I love it. But we kind of called it. Trudeau and the Liberals are tacking to the right almost identically to how Kamala Harris tacked to the right. And in my opinion, that was a central reason why she did lose the election, because frankly, nobody's going to vote for like diet conservative. If they want reactionary conservative policies, they're just going to go to the conservatives. That's it. That's always going to be the play. Always.
Well, the one thing about conservatives, at least they're to a degree honest about what they think. They don't really try to sugarcoat it. So at least most times, except for the politicians, not including politicians, but most like conservative people are generally pretty straightforward in what they want or what they don't want or who they hate.
Yeah, I always go back to that reference, like between the fox and the wolf, whereas like conservatives, they're the wolf. You see them coming. You know what they're about. Yeah. The fox, the Liberals, they pretend to be something else, and that's kind of been Trudeau's whole shtick, really. Always talking about standing up for working.
Well, sorry, I was gonna go where you're going, so I'll let you finish.
Well, he always talks about standing up for working class Canadians and talking about how much his government does for working class families. But I mean, again, we went over the numbers. It's not looking good. If that's his idea of what he's doing, it's not enough. And because of this,
he really has an idea of what working class is.
well, he never had an idea, right? He was born very privileged. He hasn't really ever had to work at all.
He's the definition of a trust fund baby.
Yeah. So he's never had to work at all, and he's never really had to, live that life. And I think one thing that I've always been critical of people in government about is that you have a lot of these types who are out of touch, one way or another. Joe Biden being a perfect example. Now, he's not as well-to-do as some of the other people who have been in government, but think about when Joe Biden was 20 years old. It was a different world. You could go to college, you could get a job, and one income could kind of like carry the family, and you could still have kids and own a home and own a car. And so when you have that person as president, they don't really have a good finger on the pulse. And of course, the same goes for Pierre Poilievre. For all of his working class rhetoric, which is the bread and butter of reactionary politics in this day and age, he's never really, none of these people have really had to struggle. They're certainly not, they don't have that experience of, spending most of your waking hours working your ass off, only to be faced with a difficult decision of like being late on rent this month versus like being able to stock the fridge. And these are concerns that everybody I know is going through right now. Everybody I know is going through the same concerns.
And you are completely right. That's the main thing with people right now is nobody is really being able to afford to live on what they're being paid. Hence why the Canada Post strike is happening. Why you're going to see probably more and more strikes happening throughout, like Canada, the States. Is people are not making enough to even get by. And it's so many people that now enough are starting to get to the point where like, no, we might have to do something about this.
I feel like, I've talked about this ad nauseum, but I feel like that's really the only actual way forward. I know a lot of people are heartbroken over Orange Bad Man getting back into office, and his tariff policy is probably the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard about. It's going to not do anything good for anybody in the working class, but this presents unique.
China, and it's not possible for them to do that.
Yeah. That said, this produces a unique opportunity because, much like in the States, Canada's probably going to go through a similar transition when it comes to government. You've got the Conservatives who are gaining more and more support as people become more and more frustrated with Trudeau's direction he's taking the country in. Everything's getting more expensive, and Poilievre is offering, those pro-corporate policies wrapped up in working class wording that's so appealing to so many people. I've gone over it before, but this is always the same cycle we get into. You got neoliberals. They can't, they can't rise to the challenge, and that gives way for a conservative reactionary savior figure, which was Trump, and here it's Pierre Poilievre. And this produces a unique opportunity because we're going to arrive at a point where not only are a lot of liberal people going to be very upset that they lost Pretty Boy, but there's going to be a lot of conservatives who start to realize very quickly, as a lot of the MAGA people already have, as Trump stacks his cabinet with the most insane neocon Zionist demons to the point where they're all just like, wait, what? We're going to get that too. Because here's the thing.
He basically picked the cabinet of I'm not even trying to hide anything anymore. He's just like, I'll take all the people that suck and warmonger and want to murder children and just put them in one group.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like he looked at all of the possible appointments, and he like called up AIPAC and was like, "Hey, can you just pick these for me? Just make it easier. I'm going to do whatever Israel wants for 4 years. That's obviously going to be my administration." And to everybody who's pretending to be surprised, he did that the first time.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't get people who are shocked by this. They're like, "What about America first?" I'm like, do you have any idea what the fuck he did for Israel during his first term? Are you high?
Well, he moved the capital to Jerusalem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I really didn't quite understand fully at the time what that part of it was. Like, I've known about the Palestinian-Israel stuff for a long time, but I didn't quite understand that specific stuff.
Yeah.
That's my wife.
Regardless.
That's Miss Yeti back there. She's trying to hide
Miss
now, but
Yeti.
it's not gonna work.
That's okay. We appreciate you guys bearing with me here. And listen, the conservative PP supporter, PP supporters, the PP supporters here in Canada are about to get a rude awakening, because I hate to break this for everybody, but the Conservatives do not have a plan to course correct on the economy. Cutting the carbon tax isn't magically just going to stop the ruthless exploitation of the working class. It's not magically going to stop corporations.
When it comes to housing, he's not talking about owning homes. He's talking about building homes. They want to build homes. They want to build homes so they can rent them out to people. They don't want to actually help the working class. They want to screw us more.
Yeah, and that's what I mean when I talk about these policies that are they're sold to you in a way that it's going to help you, but it's not going to help you. It's going to help the people that are the problem. This is. In 2024, I'm just shocked that the same shtick is working, because it's the same shtick that has been working over again.
And what they do is they sell you on like the law or the idea that they want to pass through, maybe. But then it goes through all the lobbyists and gets cut as it goes along the list, and then you end up with nothing at the end.
Mm-hmm.
For the actual people that need it.
Yeah. Anyway, without further ado, we'll hop into the news about it. Get that going here. Trudeau says he could have acted faster on immigration changes, blames bad actors. You mean the bad actor that we have to put up with on your shitty YouTube page? We'll get into that too. That's... But I digress. We'll break right into it. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the federal government could have acted faster on reining in immigration programs after blaming bad actors for gaming the system. Trudeau released a nearly 7-minute video on YouTube Sunday talking about the recent reduction in permanent residents being admitted to Canada and changes to the temporary foreign worker program. Over the next 2 years, the permanent residency stream is being reduced by about 20% to 365,000 in 2027. In the video, Trudeau talks about the need to increase immigration after pandemic lockdowns ended in order to boost the labor market, saying the move helped avoid a full-blown recession. But after that, Trudeau says some bad actors took advantage of the programs. Some saw that as a profit to game the system. We saw way too many large corporations do this, Trudeau said. Did you really see that? Or was maybe the incentive a little closer towards that than you're letting on there, Trudy? Because I'm sorry. I've done this.
He did not know what his policies do. He plays dumb all the time. And yeah, sorry. Continue.
No, it's okay. I've done this dance too many times with liberals. It's what they always do. They do shit that directly benefits corporations, and then they're like, I didn't know they would just be bad. You didn't think corporations would use every lever at their disposal to make a profit like they have been doing since corporations were a thing? You didn't know that was going to happen? Come on, buddy. Like
Alec Baldwin was when he shot that lady. That's how shocked they are. Oh, that happened. Oh.
Yeah, like, come on, man. Come on. You gotta, like, don't insult us to this degree. At least pretend to come up with a justification that doesn't make everybody feel like you're talking down to them. But alas, Trudeau, being a narcissist, can't help but talk down to people.
Give me some background to the story or something. I'm paying my money for a story now, at least. I want to get something.
The Prime Minister adds that too many colleges and universities used international student programs to raise their bottom line as non-Canadian students pay significantly higher tuition. He also said scammers targeting vulnerable immigrants with bogus path to citizenship. Looking back, when the post-pandemic boom cooled and businesses no longer needed the additional labor help, as a federal team, we could have acted quicker and turned off the taps faster, Trudeau said. From there, Trudeau talks about the new immigration plan with the stated goal of lowering the amount of permanent and temporary immigrants coming to Canada. In addition to a phased reduction in new permanent residents over the next 2 years, recent changes have made it more difficult I hate it when they do this. They fuck up a word and it like breaks my brain. More difficult for employers to get temporary worker permits approved. Trudeau says the goal of the government's immigration reduction is to help stabilize population growth while housing stocks catch up, and then to consider gradually increasing immigration rates once again. When reached for comment, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre spokesperson Sebastian Skamsky referred the Canadian press to an interview Poilievre did with CKNW 980's The Jas Johel Show in Vancouver, where Poilievre discussed immigration. In that interview, Poilievre said much of his criticism of the current immigration system is coming from what Trudeau himself has said since enacting these recent changes. Now he's basically denouncing his entire immigration policy and expecting us to believe he can fix the problems he caused, Poilievre said. The bottom line is we have to fix our immigration, get back to the best system in the world, the one that brought my wife here as a refugee legally and lawfully, the one that brought so many people here to pursue the Canadian promise, and that's what I'm going to do as Prime Minister. And again, this perfectly encapsulates the problem with Liberals tacking to the right. Every single time, the Conservatives will just say, see, we were right. We were vindicated. Yep. Their stuff's the problem. So look to us and we'll fix it. They basically hand every election to Conservatives when they do this, when they're like, you know what, the Conservative, yeah, but like we're kind of conservative too, so like vote for us, please. It doesn't work. It's a losing strategy.
Almost like every 8-10 years, we have that government switch in Canada from liberal to conservative. It's almost like always on time too.
Well, of course. It just, regardless of which big party is in charge, they essentially like see how much damage they can do, and then they do the switcheroo and hope people will not like riot. That's essentially all that happens, because that's all I'm reading here.
I think part of it is because most people are like, in at least Canada's political spectrum, are fairly centrist. So it's easy as the vast majority is willing to kind of like jump over every few years.
Yeah,
like you're saying, that's what you end up seeing is you see people that are just kind of really just wishy-washy all the time.
Well, so yeah, and also, I mean, also, it's like it's always the ratchet effect with these groups too. You know, the Liberals exist to prevent any movement to the left while the Conservatives continually move the country right. And, of course, we can't have any progressive policies despite how overwhelmingly popular they are in every friggin' country, because that's communism or something. Which the right...
Communism. But communism is bad. Wait.
Yeah, which the right helps them with every time. Because every single time I see any kind of progressive policy, we saw it with the NDP. Anytime they try and be like, hey, we should fix this because working Canadians are struggling, you get some conservative chowderhead being like, that's communism. I told you they were communism. Him and Trudeau are communism. They do this every time, and they help them. They help them because of that populist conservative rhetoric. It always creates this narrative that it's like what they're trying to do, don't look at how it'll actually affect you. It's bad. It's bad because of big scary boogeyman. So
and it's in conservative ideology, and they are right in the way our tax system is done, it's like we the people pay for it. But it's like you try to explain how you can make taxes off selling of the resource of the land, and they're like, oh, that's a good idea. And it's like, yeah, that's basically socialism. And it's like, wait, what? But it's like, you can't really think socialism because they immediately don't want to listen either. And I mean, they've been told what socialism was bad their whole life. But they're not going to believe you just because you say 5 minutes, right? So it's...
Exactly. And the funniest thing, too... is that, what I hear this from conservatives all the time, where they're like, why are we, it's this kind of contradiction that they're not aware of, where they'll go why are we sending money over to Ukraine? Why are we sending money over to, well, they don't mention the other country because that's a no-no in conservative land. But,
sorry, I'm just going to reply to Kurt Henning. Was the best. Yes, that's correct. No, I'm not on a camping trip. My wife and I moved to Nova Scotia, and we're building a homestead. So currently I have a 12 by 16 cabin I'm building. I have all the walls up and some of the side up now. And we're just in a 16-foot yurt tent. We've been here for about a month and a bit now. So
yeah.
A couple of people have asked if I was camping, so I thought I'd quickly reply to that.
No, it's all good. Yeti is doing Minecraft IRL. It's pretty dope.
Yes, Miss Witchy.
But yeah, there's always this massive contradiction of conservatives being like, why are we sending money over to Ukraine when we could spend it on Canadians or spend it on Americans or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, but when we try and do that, you just say it's socialism and it's bad. So which is it? Where do you want this money to go? Because you don't want it going to foreign aid, but you don't want it going to Canadians because then it goes against your programming. I do want to think about it
when we complain that military aren't getting enough. Enough. My brain stopped there for a second.
That's okay.
Yeah, where they complain that the military people aren't getting enough in their pensions. Yeah, that's because you guys want to cut all services. All the time.
Every time.
That's who gets affected, but they don't realize that.
One interesting thing, and I'm noticing this across the board with the rhetoric. This rhetoric is very interesting from Pierre. Get back to the best system in the world. I don't know about you, but that sounds kind of familiar. Brought so many people. Pursue the Canadian promise. What is that? Just your
American dream.
Exactly. Did you just make up a Canadian version of the American dream? This is just make Canada great again. This dude is just you know what? Let's just copy everything the Trump campaign did. We'll just run on that and we'll win because of how fucking useless Trudeau is.
Oh,
let's see. This is what we
I
covered
don't
last
understand how people don't see it.
Yeah. As for concerns around the potential for increased irregular migration with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's deportation promises, the official said the video was filmed before the American election. Like I covered, that's definitely going to be a factor, and it's going to give Poilievre like the perfect opening. It's going to give him the perfect opening, because the second this starts affecting immigration here in Canada, he can just sell it. Like, yeah, you know, this immigration's out of control. You got to vote for me. I'm the only one who can save the world or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's weird that everyone's looking for a savior, but at the same time, it's the same people that are like, oh, if you follow someone, you're a sheep. It's like, well, are you not really kind of like doing exactly what you're telling people not to do by like idolizing random people?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to me because these two groups of people accuse one another constantly of being in cults. And it's like, they don't understand. It's like, well, no, you guys are both just on teams. You're like, my team has to win at all costs, and I don't like damn everything else.
Yeah, it's like Toronto Maple Leafs and Montreal Canadiens. It's almost what we have.
Yep. So we'll go to the video now. This is just very interesting.
Immigration. Let's talk about it. In the last 2 years, our population has grown really fast, like baby boom fast. And increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests. So we're doing something major. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years. Today, I'm gonna let you in on what happened, where we made some mistakes, and why we're taking this big turn. There are two kinds of immigration in Canada. The one you probably think of most is permanent immigration, like when families come to Canada to settle and call it home. Every year, the government determines the right number of permanent residents that we want to admit. That's how it's been done for decades. But a plan that only talks about permanent immigration misses the other pathway, temporary immigration. Temporary residents are people who come to Canada for a limited time, like international students, temporary workers, and so on. They come to work a job or go to school. When the job is done or when they finish their degree, most return home. Some apply to stay as permanent residents, but most return home. So back to this year's plan. Historically, Canada's annual immigration plan just looked at permanent residents. The number of temporary students and workers that we admitted each year was left to the demands of the economy. It's usually a small proportion of our population, so it's never been a part of the long-term immigration plan. But after the pandemic, our economy came roaring back quickly, and we needed a lot of workers fast.
Yeah.
Canada is in the middle of a huge labor shortage.
Temporary foreign workers became such a significant part of our workforce that it'd be a mistake not to include them when we plan our immigration levels. So this year, we did exactly that for the first time. We laid out a plan that sets targets for both permanent and temporary residents. This way, we're getting the full breakdown of people coming into our country, so we can prepare the homes and infrastructure needed to support them. Like I said, immigration is based on demand. When we set our targets, we look at every province and territory. We ask the premiers, what are the gaps in your workforce? Is your population growing or getting older? We field calls from businesses, CEOs, economic experts, all sharing their thoughts on where we should set our targets.
We've had a chronic shortage of labor for the last decade. It is the number one issue of all manufacturers across Canada. So we think there needs to be more, push the pedal to the floor to bring more people into Canada, because
Ontario is facing a generational labor shortage. 380,000 jobs are going unfilled.
It's no surprise that every sector has different wants and needs when it comes to immigration. But after the pandemic, they all came to us with the same message. After 2 years with closed borders, we need more people, more workers, fast. So we brought in more workers. And it was the right choice. It worked. Our economy grew. Restaurants and stores reopened. Businesses kept running. But most importantly, in spite of lots of economists' predictions, we avoided the worst-case scenario, a recession. But some saw that as an opportunity to profit, to game the system. We've seen way too many large corporations doing this.
The government says the program has been used to get around hiring Canadian workers in such.
Well, no shit! That's okay. Do you guys want to hire me? Because that's the first thing I would. That's the first thing I would have said. The second you proposed all of this, that's the first thing I would have said. Oh, well, do you think that maybe corporations are going to use this in the most exploitative way possible? That should be what you're thinking about with every single decision you make under a capitalist country. You will have corporations that are going to use every lever at their disposal, like I said, to maximize the amount of profit. Of course, they're going to exploit labor using this. Of course they are. But where I always break from liberals is, I think without a shadow of a doubt, he knew that. I think his lobbyists probably knew it too. But again, they have to paint this in a way, and just this statement alone, by the way, this is gonna be a slaughter in the upcoming election. This is gonna be a bloodbath. Because first off, you're admitting essentially that you don't know what you're doing on some level. So you're handing the authority to the Conservative Party. That's number one. Number two, you're essentially admitting that you have no defenses against corporations taking advantage of your proposals and your policies. That's the big one, because you're going to lose anybody. You're going to lose anybody to the left of you, because that's our concern. We're okay.
Well, really, that's the big role of government, is to control corporations.
Yeah, that's always been the deal. If we want to live under capitalism, then government needs to kind of regulate that. Government needs to fix, or at least pretend to account for, the internal contradictions of the capitalist system. Because if those contradictions run unchecked, it's just a speed run back to fucking feudalism. That's where we're headed. So if we don't have a government that is capable enough to do that, what you are essentially doing is you are paving the way for a conservative majority by alienating everybody to the left of you and validating, vindicating everybody to the right. I'm going to make a prediction right here, right now. I think in this upcoming federal election, the Liberals won't even be second. I think they'll be third. I think for the first time ever, the NDP might actually blow the Liberals the fuck out. Because you are essentially turning everybody off your party. You're turning anybody to the right off your party who were pretty much on board. They were yeah, I kind of agree with it. There's some areas where I feel they're a little too progressive, but for the most part, it's good. And everybody to the left of them who's holding out hope that you'll go further left is going to be alienated as well. This is going to be it's going to be historical. I'm going to predict that it's going to be even worse than Harris's loss to Trump. I think Trudeau is going to get windmill dunked on with the fury of 1,000 suns. And if I'm wrong, that's just because it was all rigged, and I'm secretly right. I guess that's how liberals and Trump supporters.
Some instances.
Far too many colleges and universities used international students to raise their bottom line.
There are the diploma equivalent of puppy mills that are just churning out diplomas. There is fraud and abuse, and it needs to end.
Because they could charge these students tens of thousands of dollars more for the same degree. And then there are really bad actors who outright exploit people, who target vulnerable immigrants with promises of jobs, diplomas, and easy pathways to citizenship promises that would never come true. Looking back, when the post-pandemic boom cooled and businesses no longer needed the additional labor help, as a federal team, we could have acted quicker and turned off the taps faster.
Now, it is time to make the adjustments to stabilize the immigration system that we need and get it working right for Canadians for right now.
Immigration is primarily a federal job. We have the levers to rein it in, so we are.
This is a big change, a major cut to immigration, reducing permanent immigration levels by at least 20%.
A new string of measures to clamp down on temporary immigrants.
That means a decrease in international students, temporary foreign workers.
Canada's new immigration plan is straightforward. Lower the number of new immigrants coming into Canada, both temporary and permanent. We're prioritizing permanent residents with the skills we need, like healthcare workers for our hospitals and construction workers who will build more homes. And those temporary residents who are already in Canada, some will apply to stay in Canada as permanent residents. Since they're already here, established and working, the added pressure put on communities is very low. Or they'll leave Canada when their temporary residency expires, reducing our population. Some temporary residents may turn to our asylum system when their visa expires as a shortcut to stay in Canada. Those claims will be analyzed and processed, and if their claim fails, they'll be sent home. Between the amount of people coming and going, we'll effectively pause population growth for the next 2 years. Then from 2027 onwards, it'll balance out and slowly start increasing again at a sustainable pace. In fact, that gets us back to the population growth path we were on before the pandemic. This pause is going to give our economy and our communities the chance to catch up with things like our plan to build millions more homes. That's not stopping, but now we'll have a little more breathing room as we build. We'll see more corporations investing in Canadian workers and youth rather than relying on cheap foreign labor. Our cap on international students is already bringing rental prices down in big cities, and as we keep that cap in place, rents will keep coming down. We're making the system work for Canadians and for newcomers, rather than for the big box stores, chain restaurants, immigration consultants, and sham colleges that exploit it. Immigration is a great thing, and we're lucky that so many people dream of coming to our country. Fulfilling that dream depends on having a good job, a decent place to live, and health care that you can access when you need it. We have to make sure our population isn't getting out ahead of those things.
All right, so I'm just answering Nihilo here. What do you think Poilievre will do with his immigration policy once he gets in? Leave it as is, deep in the cut. So I have a theory. I have a theory for why all of Donald Trump's rhetoric is focused along immigration to the point where it's like a nervous tick. That he keeps just blaming every problem he can on like the millions and millions of immigrants or whatever. I apply this theory to Poilievre as well. I think what's behind all of this immigration panic is a digital ID. I 100% think that is the angle here. First of all, because conservatives are in a really tough spot when it comes to immigration, period, because a lot of their benefactors directly benefit from cheap immigrant labor. They benefit from it. So right off the bat, anything that benefits corporations is going to be a hard sell. Now, what I think could be entirely likely is we start seeing digital IDs or, similar types of like tracking apparatus being applied or at least introduced. I have a long-standing bet that I'm willing to bet $100 with anybody. It's an open bet that Donald Trump is going to introduce digital ID within 4 years. I'm actually certain on that.
I wouldn't be surprised either, actually.
Yeah. Because again, we need to think about this logistically, right? How are you going to do a mass deportation? Like, what does that involve? Do you have the personnel to do that? Is it a wise expenditure of your resources? The more you think about it in countries as large as Canada or America, the more it becomes a little kind of crazy. But what they could do is they could introduce a digital ID that would serve a purpose of you requiring that digital ID for certain elements of everyday life. Now, if they did that, they could essentially block out illegal immigrants from being able to have the same tier of rights and access to goods and services that normal Canadians have. Same thing with America. But essentially what they do is they would introduce this, and the real purpose behind it is to get everyone on that digital ID system so that the government has its hand on the pulse. So it can finally get that level of control that it's wanted for working class people. The powers that be, the rich and powerful, the capitalist class that truly does own not only the politicians in America, but also here in Canada, they're not stupid. They know people are hurting economically. They know we're rapidly reaching a boiling point, and they absolutely know that at the end of the day, they need us. They need us far more than we need them. They know that. These corporations absolutely know that. And so what they need to do is they need to clamp down on people as best they possibly can in order to prevent any sort of mass organization or mass action. But yeah, I digress. We're going to move on to what the episode was titled as. And we're going to go over the Canada Post strike, because that is most certainly an important thing that we do need to cover. What you need to know about your mail during the Canada Post strike. And as always, this goes without saying, but solidarity with the strike workers always in every single case. It may take some time for mail service to return to normal even after the strike ends. Canada Post has stopped delivering mail across the country as of Friday because tens of thousands of postal workers are on strike over wages, working conditions, and other issues. The shutdown will affect millions of Canadians and businesses nationwide just as the busy holiday season is getting underway. Here's what you need to know. What does this mean for deliveries? Canada Post isn't processing or delivering any mail and parcels for as long as the strike lasts. Some post offices will also be closed. For items that are already in the mail, service guarantees could be affected. It may take some time for mail service to return to normal even after the strike ends, according to a statement from the corporation. From the corporation. Canada Post workers on strike, mail and parcels won't be delivered. 55,000 Canada Post workers are on strike, a move that will force businesses and consumers to seek shipping alternatives ahead of a busy holiday season. Can I drop letters or parcels in the mail in the meantime? No, Canada Post has said it isn't accepting new items until the national disruption is over. Jim Bookbinder, a management services professor at the University of Waterloo in Ontario, said an alternative courier service could be worth considering if you have an important piece of mail delivered on time or ensure a gift arrives in time for the holidays. What impact is the Canada Post strike having on you? What should be done? Leave your story opinions here. What about mail from other major couriers? Purelator is a subsidiary of Canada Post. The Union for Purelator Workers has said staff will not handle mail that originated with Canada Post in an act of solidarity. Based. Oh, that's based. I love that.
All right.
We're just
like to die on me. Sorry.
No worries, man. Whenever it dies, I'll just I'll just, point it out. And yeah, I pretty much have this. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
So, yeah, it shouldn't be too bad. But FedEx deliveries aren't affected by the strike. A company statement said there was a contingency plan in place to manage volume while Canada Post is out of commission. CBC News has contacted UPS Canada for information on its service. How much does this affect rural communities, which I would be a part of? They will be hit particularly hard. Rural and remote communities across the country rely solely on Canada Post for deliveries because many private for-profit courier companies don't spend the money to fully service those areas. In some cases, couriers send mail part of the way, but it's Canada Post that carries the package for the last few kilometers. Will I still get my assistance check from the government? Canada Post and the union have agreed to continue delivering government benefit checks, including old age security, the Canada Child Benefit, and the Canada Pension Plan during the labor disruption. A statement said seniors and others who rely on the mail service will still receive timely financial assistance. The corporation said all November checks should be delivered on Wednesday, November 20th. December checks would arrive on Wednesday, December 18th. Service Canada has urged Canadians to set up online accounts and direct deposits so they can receive their benefits without delay. The government department has more information here on which services may or may not be affected by the strike. What about bank statements? Several Canadian banks have reminded customers to switch to online statements and e-banking to manage statements, bills, and other banking communication. CIBC said customers are still required to make regular payments and meet financial obligations on credit cards, loans, and mortgages when the post is disrupted. Other banks, including Scotiabank and BMO, have issued similar statements.
So one of the things that annoys me the most is banks going to like no tellers.
Yeah. How much will this hurt small businesses? The Canadian Federation of Independent Business said 80% of the country's small businesses rely on Canada Post for shipping goods, invoicing, and receiving payments. President Dan Kelly said the strike is really bad timing and a terrible blow to small businesses, especially after the port strike in BC earlier this year. Yeah, well, the point of strikes is that they're not supposed to be convenient. That's the whole point. The point of the strike is to draw enough attention to a base of workers that something is done about it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the whole. We're just getting the ports back in operation, and now retailers may start to receive goods again that were frozen in the ports for a while. But now they're going to struggle to get them. Let's see. Oh, shit. I totally forgot to take that comment off. There we go. Okay, perfect. Okay. We're just getting the ports back in operation, and now retailers may start to receive goods again that were frozen in the ports for a while, but now they're going to struggle to get them out to their end consumer because of the postal strike, he told the Canadian Post. CFIB says businesses worried about cost deliveries, cash flow amid postal strike. Corinne Pullman, Executive Vice President of Advocacy for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, says her organization asked members what they were worried about ahead of the Canada Post strike. Kelly said the strike will also freeze business invoices already traveling through the mail system, sending people scrambling to try and get money. Again, strikes are not supposed to be. Oh, and just as a call out, I believe Yeti's laptop just died. But we're almost through it. Like I said, though, Strikes are not supposed to be convenient. That's the whole point. It's supposed to disrupt the system. And something that I will admit I struggled with as a kid was I would always get mad at the strikers, because you got a lot of propaganda that are trying to make people get mad at the people striking. You should not. All of that pressure should be on whatever company the strike is associated with. That's Indy's breaking that news. But I digress. The pressure should always be on the company that the people are striking for. So if you see anybody complaining about the Canada Post, complaining about how this is affecting their business, how it is affecting their livelihood, how it's affecting their everyday life, I would highly urge you to reframe this in a way that the company is implicated. So, for example, if one of your friends owns a small business and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Canada Post is just not getting any of the things that I need delivered to me. You go, yeah, it's really shitty that Canada Post is doing that. And if they go, well, no, it's the workers striking, then you go, well, they're striking because of Canada Post, right? So if they just kind of like gave them what they were asking for, there wouldn't be a strike. That's the whole point of strikes. That's how you get people to snap out of the reactionary sentiment that is so common among people exercising their right to strike. Be sure to always frame it in a light that blames the company. Don't ever blame the strikers. Bookbinder at the University of Waterloo professor said retailers could consider alternatives like FedEx or UPS, but noted mailing parcels would likely cost 30 to 40% more in shipping. Can the government order workers back to work? The government has that power, but didn't have plans to use it as of Friday morning. I'm not looking at any other solution other than negotiation right now, Labour Minister Stephen McKinnon told reporters in Montreal. Every day is a new day in collective bargaining, and we are going to continue to support the parties in any way we can and make sure that they are able to try and get a negotiated agreement. So, that is everything you need to know about the Canada Post strike. I stand in solidarity with the workers who are striking to try and get things like better wages, better treatment. Excuse me. I personally hope that one day we're all in this boat. And I'm going to cover this in great detail on Thursday's episode of Snow Himbo Streams, but as I kind of hinted towards, we live in an unprecedented age of opportunity when it comes to organizing, when it comes to creating class consciousness for your fellow working class people, when it comes to radicalizing your fellow working class people. We live in an unprecedented age of this right now, where there are many, many opportunities to be had. We need to eventually reach a level of class consciousness where things like a general strike, things like mass civil disobedience are things that are possible and able to be used as tools of negotiation, both in how we can get our corporations to behave better, and more so how we can get our governments who are beholden to those corporations to behave better as well. We need to build dual power. And the first step in getting that done is getting everybody on the same page. And it doesn't mean you have to tell everybody to read Das Kapital or endless theory books. It doesn't even mean you have to get people to agree with every single issue on everything, especially when it comes to culture war, because we all know that shit's toxic as hell. What it means is you have to galvanize people and create alliances, create allegiances based on your collective material conditions. Pretty much most people I know agree that their job doesn't pay them enough. They don't get enough protections at their workplace. Bills are too much. Rent is too high. Groceries are too high. We all agree on this. We should be organizing on it. And a big point of reactionary propaganda is to keep people divided, so they do not come together over the myriad things that they have in common, as opposed to what separates them. Exactly. Against capital. I'll make sure to not leave that comment up forever this time. So I do hope that the workers at Canada Post reach a fair agreement. And I want to ask everybody here, let this inspire you, okay? Because here's my dream, okay? Picture not just Canada Post going on strike. Picture grocery store workers going on strike, the post office going on strike, truckers going on strike, people working in the power grid going on strike. Picture a workforce that is so solidified, that they say, hey, if you guys don't cut this shit out, we're going to shut the whole country down. Because you absolutely can do that. Okay? I remember a strike here when I lived in Toronto. It was the garbage workers going on strike. And I swear to God, for a good week, Toronto was like hell on earth. There were just piles of garbage everywhere. You could not escape the stench. It was just garbage all over the place. Nobody even knew what to do with their garbage. And when you see these groups of people saying, you know what, I've had enough, we deserve better, and actually shut down areas of the economy that are required for society to move forward, it's a reminder of how important workers are. It's a reminder of how much everyday working class people are needed in order to advance society. That's essentially what it's a reminder of. Actually, I'm curious because I don't know this. Is Canada Post like just a corporation? I'm super curious now. Crown Corporation. Okay. State-owned enterprise. Interesting. I did not know that. Now I do. Well, regardless, I wish them all the best in getting better conditions for themselves. And to everybody who's probably going to complain about this, let it inspire you. You know, it's obviously not easy to get something popping off in your workplace, but we got to start somewhere. And so my assignment for the week to all the Canadians out there, if you hear people inevitably complaining about this, repackage it in a way where it's like, oh, well, it's kind of base that they decided to, stand up against the man and demand better conditions for all the work they do. repackage it in a way that makes the strike and the activity of organizing inspiring, something that people should do more and more. Because, of course, you are going to see the propaganda. Pierre will probably blame Trudeau for this one way or another. A lot of conservatives are probably going to just shit on the workers because that's what the reactionary programming have caused them to do. But yeah, that's at the end of the day, that's my main assignment for everybody for the week. If you hear people complaining about this, redirect the blame to the corporation, to the entity that is causing the pain and the hurt, and frame it in a way that's inspirational. Again, I'll be going over this in great detail on Thursday on ways that you can radicalize people and get people more on the same page when it comes to what's needed to move forward. Because we got a lot of work to do, and frankly, I'm sorry, liberals, conservatives, even the NDP, they're not the way. They're not going to get us what we need. They're definitely not going to speak to the material conditions of the working class, because these parties are beholden to capital. Period. They always will be. They will always give you just enough to prevent you from going out into the streets. And the problem is, the main issue we have right now is that they're not even giving enough to prevent that at this point. All they have is their propaganda, their division tactics, and that's right. She will also be on the show with me on Thursday. We'll be going over some cool stuff, but yeah. I'm very open to guests in general. So if anybody's interested in coming on and shooting shit, either for the Maple Files or for Snow Himbo streams on Thursday, please let me know. But alas, that's pretty much all we had for tonight. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. I will personally see everybody Thursday. As the format kind of goes, the Maple Files is kind of like a shorter show. It's more just kind of covering recent developments. Some of them go a little longer, but for the most part, I try and keep it kind of tight. Snow Himbo streams is going to be a much longer form, just in general. Probably going to be a long 2-3 hours, maybe longer. But that's really the main kind of long format. So anyway, I'm rambling now, and I'm really hungry, so I gotta go eat something. But thanks everybody for tuning in, and be sure to check out INN's schedule for the rest of the shows this week. And as always, keep